Welcome back to the Grow Like a Mother podcast. I'm really excited today to have Miriam Rachel with me. Miriam Rachel is a tarot reader, an astrologer, and a writer, and she struggled in the past with pathological people pleasing, like many of us. And now she's really vocal about the dangers of spiritual bypassing and toxic positivity. And she talks about how tarot can be used as a helpful tool that goes beyond divination. She's got a new book out, and it's all about how you can use tarot to help yourself shed people pleasing and set new boundaries. We're talking all kinds of woo things today, but also really practical. So, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, it's really a cool topic to talk about. I'm really excited to dive in. Can you tell us maybe a little bit about how you got familiar with tarot and how you use it differently than maybe other people do?
Okay. Well, it's very interesting because after I had my daughter in 2002, I started falling into metaphysical stuff. So then I fell into astrology as well as tarot, and I did become a certified astrologer several years later, but I'm not really practicing so much astrology now. I'm mostly focusing on tarot. So I've been doing a lot of readings for many years, and I have found that you can use tarot. And I mean, there are plenty of books out there that teach you how to use tarot for other things that have nothing to do with divination, such as promoting your creativity, self-reflection, and problem solving, decision making, and all that. So I find the practical use of tarot very, very helpful, I find. And since I struggled with pathological people pleasing, I also found that there are ways to use tarot to help yourself do some self-reflection and find out why you are struggling with boundary setting, why you can't say no, and just why you're a people pleaser. So in my book, I talk all about that. In my book, Overcoming Echoism by Using Tarot, I talk about the facts about echoism, which is pathological people pleasing, as well as my story as to why I ended up becoming an echoist and the catalyst that got me out of it. And I also talk about how tarot can be used as a great tool to help you shed echoism, but I also want to stress that it is not a replacement for professional therapy. You can
Mhm.
use it with professional therapy, but it is not a replacement for it because if you've got some very, very deep issues that come from trauma, you need to work with somebody who is trauma informed, a professional, but the tarot is a great addition.
Hey, that's super cool. So, echoism is not a term that I had heard
Hmm.
before I got connected with you. Can you tell us a little bit
Yeah.
more about that?
Yeah. So, okay. Narcissism is a spectrum, right? You've got the highest end as pathological narcissism, NPD, whereas the other side of the spectrum is egoism, which means you don't even acknowledge your needs. You don't know how to set boundaries. Everyone else's needs are more important than yours, which we know is not true, but that's what the egoist sees, right? Whereas the pathological narcissist, only cares about themselves and has no concern for others. The egoist is too empathetic, whereas the narcissist has zero empathy, right? So the best place to be is somewhere in the middle, right? Right. So that's basically what echoism is in a nutshell. Also want to stress I'm not a therapist. I learned about echoism through Dr. Craig Malkin, and he's a great psychologist and author of so many books about echoism. So that's where I learned it from and did some research on it, and I just was like, wow, I was that, but I'm not anymore.
Well, that is amazing. I have so many questions about how you got yourself from that end of the spectrum to a more comfortable place,
Mm.
perhaps a more
Mm-hmm.
emotionally supportive place. Where did that start for you? Like, how did you start that
Ooh.
journey?
All right. So I'll just tell you how I ended up becoming that way. In my youth, I was scapegoated and bullied so much because, me being the oldest and me being extra sensitive, I had some issues myself. I was never exactly all that pretty, and I was the bully. I was the bully target, especially middle school and early high school. So I wanted to do everything I could to make others happy and to accept me. So I, at that time, just didn't care about my needs and I didn't even know what boundaries were. So I just let people trample on me. I let people take advantage of me. I just wanted to be accepted. So there was no self-respect in my case, but I also wanted to be out of the spotlight because I knew I was going to be ridiculed. That's what I believed anyway. So that's where I ended up becoming an equist over time. And I struggled with it for decades. And my turning point was when I have two kids. One of them has complex special needs. I absolutely could not care for him. I did my best. I did my absolute best. Society expects parents to take care of kids with special needs forever, but I was not going to give in to society's expectations because I was in a very dangerous place. I'll just say that. And I knew it was going to be a matter of life or death if things kept up the way they were. So I did the most difficult thing. I reached out for help. I said, look, he's got to be transitioned to a therapeutic residence because I can't keep him here. I just can't. They listened to me. They took me seriously. I spoke up for myself. And that was the catalyst. Now, it wasn't a case where the day after I woke up and said, well, okay, I'm not an echoist anymore. Great. No, doesn't work that way. It was something that I was shedding over time without even realizing it. And while I was doing that, I was dealing with so many shadows of trauma that I never knew that I really had. And it all really hit me actually during one of the COVID lockdowns. So,
Yeah. Wow.
mm,
That's such a powerful story. I can only imagine. I have a special needs child as well, but not in the severity that they would need to be transitioned
mhm.
to care. So, I mean, wow, kudos to you for having the courage and the self-awareness to ask for help because so many moms, that is one of our
Mhm.
biggest struggles is we think we have to do it all and we have to do it perfect and we can't ask for help. And such a great reminder that like it's so important to ask for the help
Yeah.
that you need, first
Oh,
off,
yes.
you
Yes.
know?
Very true, very true. And that was the other thing too. A thing with echoists is that they don't like to ask for help. They just do everything on their own. It's a trauma response. It's because they've been denied many times and they're like, what's the point in even asking for help because I'm just going to be ignored anyway. But now I do. If I can't do something myself, I will ask for help. Now, I'm just going to give an example. My mother has a dog walker that she uses for her dog, and my mother's elderly, so she can't keep the dog home all day. This is a very active, busy dog, right? And the dog walker is going to be on vacation for a while, next month. So she asked me if I could, help in some way. And I mean, obviously, I can't take care of the dog because I've got so many other things. She wasn't asking me to do that anyway, but what I did was I know of somebody who has a lot of connections to dog walkers, so I ended up passing it on I ended up relaying that question to them, say, can you help my mother? Because I'm not going to be able to do it. And yeah, she gave me some leads and I just passed it on to my mom. I normally, if it wasn't, I mean, I probably would have offered to put everything aside and watch the dog myself, but I also would have just put everything aside to do research on my own, right? Instead of just asking this individual who I knew had connections for help.
Mm-hmm.
So,
That's so incredible to recognize that helping doesn't mean like helping others, which is something we all innately, I think,
mhm.
want to do, doesn't mean that you have to do the thing yourself. That is not, it doesn't have to always be that way. And it's so funny that you use that story because I am currently dog sitting my mother's dog and she's
Oh,
driving me bananas. But, anyways, um, I want to ask how, now that we kind of understand this terminology and what it's all about, like, how can we help our kids from
mhm.
growing up with this? Because I've got small kids. One is a super people pleaser.
Mm.
And I'm trying my best because I'm the same as you. I've gotten past that. That was my past. Now I'm really confident in all kinds of different ways to not do that. I maybe have swung a little further on the spectrum than is wise. But in any case, it's a work in progress. How do I encourage my kids to stand up for themselves while they're still young enough that they have to listen to the rules? You know what I
Okay,
mean?
Yeah, I do. And I mean, this is where it can get a little tricky because you tell your kids you got to share, you got to not be selfish and all that. However, there's got to be a balance somewhere. It's like, yes, you got to share and you don't want to be selfish, but at the same time, if it doesn't make you feel good, then you have to be honest about that. Say, for instance, if they had a friend asking them over for a play date and somebody else was going to be there who they didn't like, they may feel, well, maybe I should go because my friend will be really upset. But the thing is, if they're not going to be happy, then they shouldn't go. And I think this is something to stress. Like, you know what? That person who you don't like is going to be there. Why do you want to make yourself unhappy by being there just to make your friend happy? Tell them, make another date. Say, listen, I want to see you, but not on that date if that person's going to be there because I don't like them, kind of thing, right? So I think that's really what it is. It's hard to find that balance, but I think if you tell your kids to, yes, you've got to be kind to others and share with others, but at the same time, you don't want to do something that's going to make you feel yucky, kind of thing, right?
Right. And that gives a
Hmm.
wonderful opportunity to have that conversation about, well, you're feeling this way. Let's talk
Hmm.
about the feeling. The feeling's valid. You might not get your way,
Hmm.
but like the feeling is something that we should investigate together or like talk about how we can manage that.
Yeah, and the other thing I want to mention is that they may end up using that message to not do their homework kind of thing. So you got
Yeah.
to say, no, 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 there are things that you absolutely need to do because when you do get a job one day, you're going to be doing things that you're not going to want to do either. But at the same time, you want to stress to your teacher who may be being too hard on you to be a little bit easier, ask them for extra help, just like if your boss is abusing you, you got to say something to them as well, kind of thing. So I think it's just a matter of, yes, you got to accept you're going to do things that you're not going to want to do sometimes. But if you're feeling really yucky and uncomfortable, then you have to speak up about it. And you can't worry if others are going to be upset with you.
Such a skill to build.
It
And I'm
really is.
curious, yeah, and I'm curious to know how we can use tarot to help us build this skill. So tell us about that.
Yes. Now, the first thing you need to do is you got to learn the tarot. You have to understand what the meanings are. Now, the thing is, you don't have to memorize the guidebooks that the tarot cards come with because most decks come with a guidebook, right? But you need to develop your own connections. Now, the book that I have is good for really anyone, whether they're seasoned readers or not, because I give a whole description of what each card means, all 78 cards. And I also talk about how it relates to aspects of people pleasing. So I think the first step is to work with tarot, just practice it if you're not really a seasoned reader. Practice it, get to know the cards, just do just um some spreads to just learn about the tarot, just in general. And then once you feel you've learned enough about it, then you can use it for other uses like self-reflection as well as creativity, etc. So once you get to know the tarot very well, then you could start to learn about how to examine within as to why you struggle with boundary setting and use it for insight on how to shed people pleasing and why you're a people pleaser. And you can gain so much insight with it.
Does it matter? I'm just thinking about people who maybe don't have a tarot deck at home, who are curious, they haven't done it. Does it matter what deck they get, or does any deck
No,
work?
any deck will work. Now, my recommendation though, if someone really wants to know about tarot but does not know a thing about it, my recommendation is to get the Rider-Waite deck because that is the teaching deck. That is the deck that helps you understand everything that has to do with tarot. And that's what I highly recommend. So if you don't have a tarot deck, get that one, Rider-Waite, because that is the ultimate teaching deck, and that'll give you the symbolism that you need to know about tarot, and it'll help you develop your connection to the cards too. So that's my recommendation. But if you're a seasoned reader and you have another deck that you love, use it.
Okay,
Yeah.
perfect. And you mentioned also that you do tarot readings for people. I know that you're based in
Hmm.
Toronto. Is that something that you do virtually as well? Like if some
Yes.
listeners in the States and they're thinking like, oh,
Oh,
that would be a
yeah.
great thing.
I've read for people all over the world. So yeah, definitely. Virtual, yeah. In fact, I don't do a lot of in person now, but I do mostly virtual. So yeah, absolutely.
Okay. And how can people connect with you and learn more from you if they're interested in diving down this path?
Yep, they can go to miriamreadstarot.com, and I'm also on Substack, Miriam Reads Tarot at substack.com. I'm on X, Miriam Rachel 75. I'm also on Instagram. I'm not doing too much with Instagram right now, but I think I'm going to get more into it. Miriam Reads Tarot on Instagram. So those are the main ways that people can connect with me.
Okay, I'm going to make sure that I drop those all in the show notes so that people have easy access if they want to learn more. And thank you so much for coming on and talking to us about this today. I know I learned some things, which is always so fun for me to get new language and new tools. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me.